Coming up, Russia collusion, Jeffrey Epstein, and a subpoena for the Clintons. Plus, the vice president on 2028 and the potential for a Vance Marco Rubio ticket. Stay with us on Sunday Morning Futures for more.
Meanwhile, we're still waiting for accountability on the whole Russia collusion made-up story.
Yes.
Now that DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, has released all of those classified documents, we're actually seeing who was behind all of this. Do you want to see indictments?
I absolutely want to see indictments, Maria. Look, of course, you've got to have the law follow the facts here. You don't just indict people to indict people. You indict people because they broke the law. But if you look at what Tulsi and Kash Patel have revealed in the last couple of weeks, I don't know how anybody can look at that and say that there wasn't aggressive violations of the law. What they basically did is they defrauded the American people in order to take Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points and turn them into intelligence by defrauding the American people, defrauding the intelligence agencies, lying about what the intel said. They would take something that supported a Hillary Clinton campaign talking point and they would overemphasize it and exaggerate it. They took anything that actually contradicted that narrative and they buried it deep. And through that, they actually laundered Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign talking points through the American intelligence services. That's a violation of the people's trust. That's a violation of what our intelligence services should be doing, and I absolutely think they broke the law, and you're going to see a lot of people get indicted for that. Here's the thing that should really bother the American people. What do you want our intelligence community to be doing? I want them to be catching bad guys. I want them to be making sure that terrorists aren't going to kill innocent American civilians. I don't want them laundering Hillary Clinton's campaign talking points into the American media and giving them this air of legitimacy. It is sick. And it's disgusting. It hurt the intelligence community, it hurt the American people, and it hurt the first Trump administration. We've got to have consequences for it, or we're just going to see the same play repeated again and after again.
How significant did it impact the president's first term? Because remember, a lot of people didn't want to work in the administration. He was always on defense, saying, I didn't collude.
Sure.
What kind of an impact was there to actual policy and the impact on the American people?
Look, it certainly had an impact, Maria. The president likes to say this, and I really think it hits the nail on the head, that as much as he got accomplished, and I think the first Trump administration was a major, major success for the American people, he was both governing but also fighting to survive. Imagine if he was able to put 100% of his efforts and his attention on just doing the job of President of the United States. He had to fight back against the fake Russia collusion hoax pretty much his entire administration. That distracts resources, that distracts from the Department of Justice. That means the intelligence community is focused on that instead of on catching bad guys. It definitely had an impact. Thank God we have a president who was able to do good things for the American people despite it. But one of the reasons why I think the second Trump administration is going so well is because the administration, the people underneath them, the people behind them, the people working for them, they're not engaged in this fake garbage. We're just trying to carry out the mandate of the President of the United States. And I think we've done a very good job. We're very proud of the work that we're doing, but we're also loyal to the man who was elected by the American people.
And here we are on your 200th day, you and the president doing so much in this second term. Let's talk about the president's efforts on trade and tariffs, because he's not afraid to put significant tariffs on countries like India for buying Russian oil. Are you going to do a similar move to China as well? They're also buying Russian oil.
Well, the president said he's thinking about it, but he hasn't made any firm decisions. Obviously, the China issue is a little bit more complicated because our relationship with China it affects a lot of other things that have nothing to do with the Russian situation. So the president's reviewing his options and, of course, going to make that decision when he decides. But look, what the president has used tariffs to do is two things. Number one, you saw Tim Cook just this week come in and promise $600 billion of investment to build the iPhone, to build components, to build artificial intelligence data centers right here in the United States of America. We're seeing a manufacturing boom in this country because you have a president who's telling people that if you want to sell to great American consumers, you've got to make it in America and use great American workers to do it. The second thing the tariffs are doing is it's bringing in a lot of additional revenue, which of course we're using to give tax relief to the American people and make it easier for average Americans to get by. So I think we're doing a lot on the tariff side. And it's also, the final point I'll make on this is it's an incredible negotiating tool, because when you tell countries that have accessed American markets and cheated for a generation, you can't get into America's market unless you pay a big fat tariff or open up your own markets. You've seen this happen with the European Union. You've seen this happen with countries in Asia. All over the world, they're opening up their markets to American goods because they don't want to pay the tariffs. So it's a great negotiating tactic. It's been great for the American people. And I think it's the most important thing, maybe aside from the border, the most important thing the president is doing is bringing back American prosperity. We're going to make more stuff in America because of the president's leadership.
How long do you expect it'll take to get a real manufacturing infrastructure fired up in America? Because he's threatening 250% tariffs on pharmaceuticals, more tariffs on semiconductor chips, unless these companies commit to building it here. So how long before that can actually happen?
Well, the president you saw yesterday said so long as you're committing on semiconductors and chips to build this stuff in America, he might be willing to actually delay those tariffs a little bit. So I think in some cases it's going to take a few weeks, some cases it's going to take a few months, some cases it will take longer. But the basic idea is very simple. If you are investing in America, if you're building a new facility, building a new factory, we're going to reward you for it. If you're investing outside of this country, if you're trying to cheat and bring foreign product to undercut the wages of American workers and American businesses, then you're going to pay a very stiff penalty. That principle is what now drives the American economy, and people can make their own decisions. Yeah, you can make it overseas if you want, as the president said, but you're going to pay a big fat tariff before you access America's market, so you might as well build it right here at home.
Is Europe as aligned with the United States as it should be? What did you make of the backlash over the Switzerland 39% tariff? I'm wondering your assessment of Europe today.
Look, we love Europe and obviously have a great relationships. We sometimes have some disagreements. I think the president was particularly gratified that the Europeans really have agreed and committed to open up their markets to American car manufacturers, to American farmers. Those are big wins. If you work in farming, if you work in agriculture, if you work in auto manufacturing, the Europeans really are tearing down some barriers. So we're very grateful to that, and we hope to build on that relationship economically in the coming years.
Well, look, the president has been floating you along with Marco Rubio as your partner for the next election. Have you spoken to Secretary Rubio about this?
I saw Marco about a month ago. We just laughed at the whole thing because neither one of us are focused on politics. We're focused on actually doing a good job for the American people. And the way that I think about it, Maria, is if we do a good job, number one, that's the reward in and of itself, that all have made a big difference in the lives of our country for the last 6 months, the next 3.5 years. But if we do a good job, the politics will take care of itself. Let's just focus on that. I think, as the president said, it's way too early to be thinking about the political future. It's frankly way too early to be thinking about 2026. It's certainly way too early to be thinking about 2028.
But you are expecting to run for president in 28.
I'm not going to break that news today, Maria. What I'm going to do is focus for the next 1.5 years on doing a really good job for the American people, winning the midterm elections in 2026, and then we can talk about politics after that.
Can you give us some clarity on this meeting that is reportedly happening or happened last night at the White House about the Epstein files and how you're communicating the Epstein story?
So I've seen so many different fake reports about this, so let me set the record straight. There was no meeting at my house last night. There just wasn't.
Was there a meeting at the White House?
We did meet at the White House yesterday, but not at the time that they said that we were going to meet, and not about the subject that they said that we were going to meet about. We have a great FBI director and a great Department of Justice lead, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and we met to talk about how to ensure we have justice for the American people. We actually didn't talk about the Epstein issue at all. That was never meant to be the subject of the meeting. And it's one of those things where I guess somebody leaked a calendar entry maybe, and then people assumed that it must have been about Epstein, even though it had nothing to do with Epstein. On the Epstein issue, what the president has said very clearly, because we've had other meetings about that, is that he wants us to be fully transparent and he wants the credible information out there. So we're working to compile the thousands and thousands of documents that are out there for full transparency. But I have to say, Maria, I laugh at the Democrats who are now all of a sudden so interested in the Epstein files. For 4 years, Joe Biden and the Democrats did absolutely nothing about this story. We know that Jeffrey Epstein had a lot of connections with left-wing politicians and left-wing billionaires, and now President Trump has demanded full transparency from this, and yet somehow the Democrats are attacking him and not the Biden administration, which did nothing for 4 years.
Was it the right move for Comer to send subpoenas to the Clintons?
It absolutely was, and it drives home how, while the Democrats have tried to make this Epstein thing about anything but, the fact that Democrat billionaires and Democrat political leaders went to Epstein Island all the time. Who knows what they did, but it's totally reasonable to ask these questions. What you saw in the House's subpoena is they are trying to investigate all of the things related to this particular case. I know a lot of Americans want answers. I certainly want answers. And I think James Comer and the team of the House, they're doing the right thing. And of course, we know that Clinton, or allegedly he went to the island 26 times, 28 times. Totally appropriate for Comer to be asking what was going on at that island.
Let me get your quick take on growth and this moment in time that we're at, AI, crypto, et cetera, et cetera. The Securities and Exchange Commission launching Project Crypto. What do you want digital assets to look like? And also, what about the impact of AI on jobs? Is there a plan now to fill those holes for the jobs that no doubt will go away because AI makes everything so much more productive?
There's a lot of talk about robots destroying all the jobs. There's a lot of talk about how AI is going to destroy everybody's job. I actually don't see the evidence of that. What I think is that AI, there are some issues. I worry about the surveillance state because artificial intelligence is going to be used for that. I really worry about invasions of people's privacy because AI could be used for that. There are definitely concerns with AI, but I think that the big risk is fundamentally you've got a bunch of very left-wing people who might use AI to censor people and drive a very left-wing narrative using artificial intelligence. In some ways, they're going to do with AI what they tried to do with big tech. Those are the things that we're really focused on, the dangers that we're really focused on. But Maria, there's a lot of upside too. And if you got to focus on the dangers, but you've also got to focus on the opportunity. I think it's going to help us cure diseases in amazing ways. I think it's going to lead to a boom in construction jobs. I think we're going to be able to do things that we weren't able to do before. And there might be some disruptions, but fundamentally when it comes to jobs, we ought to be focused on the ways in which AI is going to create great productivity and great new economic opportunities. What I worry about is the focus on the job destroying effects of AI distract us from the fact that AI could be used to create new surveillance systems, that AI could be used to censor conservatives or other people in new and very scary ways. That's what we're focused on. I think it's the right danger, but also the right opportunity for us to focus on.
And just the final question on
Please.
China, because nobody does surveillance better than China. What else can the U.S. do to keep China in a box? Because they're undermining us at every turn. Just this week, Senator Tom Cotton sent a letter to Intel about its CEO because it was selling secrets to companies tied to the Chinese military.
Yep.
Is there anything else to be done there that you'd like to discuss?
Well, there is, and this is where it goes back to having a really great FBI director and a really great attorney general, is that when people are stealing America's secrets or stealing our corporate intellectual property and sending it to anywhere, we've got to prosecute that stuff. We know that Chinese companies have been really big offenders when it comes to the theft of American intellectual property. We got to prosecute that stuff and push back against that stuff. We have to make sure that we don't have people who are spying on American companies, either in our education laboratories or in the companies themselves. But the most important thing that we need to do is we need to protect our own manufacturing. The way that China was able to catch up to us technologically is that they took all of these great manufacturing industries and built a whole technology infrastructure on top of that manufacturing base. We've got to rebuild our own country, rebuild our own innovative capacity. The president has taken huge strides over the past 7 months in making that happen, and building America up is the best way for us to win this competition.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.